We haven't talked about it, at least I haven't talked about it on this channel, and I think we need to talk about it. We need to talk about the guy that everybody is rumoring being traded to the Chargers, and that is Jalen Ramsey. We're going to talk about that. I want to know, is this something you want to have happen? Is it something you want to have happen? And then we are going to go ahead. I mean, he's already been on the other LA team. We don't need that, right? And that is where he's rumored to go. We're going to go why the Chargers keep coming up in the trade talks. We're going to talk about the financial implications of the trade. We're going to talk about that as well. And because that is a big piece of this. If it's just trading for Jalen Ramsey straight up, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's something that I would absolutely do, and it was something that would fit the scheme and the style of cornerback that this team would love to have based on who they've been drafting. So we will absolutely talk about all of those things, and we'll kind of get into whether or not I think it's a good decision or not. But I want you to tell me first. Leave it in the comments right now. Is that something you want to do? If you are new to this channel, my name's Craig. Me and Chris started this channel a little over a year ago. It's been over a year now, which is awesome, and it's been fun to grow with this community. We are Detroit Lions fans. We don't not say that ever. We are, and we grew up watching the Chargers as well. We love the NFL, and we love Jim Harbaugh, so we thought it made sense to follow him here. Being Lions fans, it only makes sense that we're naturally Michigan fans because Michigan's better than Michigan State, not just on the field, but they're just awesome. All right, so we want to get into that. So let's talk about this whole Jalen Ramsey thing. And the reason I'm talking about this is CBS wrote an article recently, just 5 hours ago, that the Dolphins continue to weigh their options with Jalen Ramsey, and that Pittsburgh, Schefter came out and said Pittsburgh actually checked in. So why am I telling you this? Well, because you get talked about. I think Pittsburgh checked in, Schefter said Tuesday on ESPN Radio. That's today. I'm not so sure that Pittsburgh's going to be the destination. In fact, if I had to guess, I would say Pittsburgh would not be the likely destination. I think you're trying to figure out a home for Jalen Ramsey. Two teams that make sense, and we'll see how it plays out, would be both in L.A., Los Angeles, be it the Chargers or the Rams. All right? He said, I know that people have brought up the Rams, and the Rams just continue to float around out there. It would have to work financially for both sides. However, it does make sense for the Chargers, especially when you have McVay over with the Rams saying stuff like this. We'll go start here. Definitely don't want to rule anything out because we're always open-minded to the onboarding and acquiring quality players and people like him if we're able to do that. But there would be some obstacles that are real that are in place of maybe preventing that from occurring. Well, when you're talking about obstacles, my guess is that you are talking about this. You are talking about a massive salary. A massive salary. When this year the acquiring team would have to pay more, the cap hit in 2025 is only $16 million if he stays with the Dolphins, but it'd be more. And then all the rest of this cap hit really goes up with it. Like, it really goes up with it. Based on some of the numbers that I've been trying to find, I went everywhere from reading articles to asking Chat GPT to I did a bunch of different things. But from what I can see, the acquiring team, he has 4 years left on this contract. The acquiring team on a post-June 1 trade, which obviously it is, in 2025 would be on the hook for $21.1 million. In 2026, it would be $25 million. In 2027, it would be $26.8 million. And then in 2028, you have almost certainly cut him, traded him, released him, restructured him because he's a 34-year-old corner that is due $36.2 million. Now, do I think at his current abilities he's a $21 million corner? Of course I do. Do the Chargers have the ability to pay him? That is another question that we have to ask. All right? That's another question that we have to ask. In 2025, if you look at Spotrac, they currently are 15th in cap space. You can see it right up here. All right, right up here. They're 15th in cap space with $27 million. They might have to move some money around, but they could get it done, but it would leave them really cash strapped. So they would probably be asking someone like Mack or James or Slater maybe. No, not Slater because he's on the final year of his rookie deal. You'd be asking one of those guys to maybe Trey Pipkins to kind of restructure a little bit of their contract. But here's the thing you have to understand. In 2026, no team right now sits with more cap space. They can absolutely afford it. In fact, they could even push some of this heavy money of Jalen Ramsey's contract back. They can push it back because they have the space to do it. In 2027, they are the second most cap space. And here's the thing that I need to talk about that's amazing. They're doing all this with paying Herbert $60 million a year, right? And then in 2028, all right, they're fifth. So there is money to spend this year, not as much, but going forward, a lot of money. So they can afford it. The question is, do you want to? And in order to decide if you want to, I want to look into your cornerback room. Right now, based on last year, you have one, and I know Cam Hart flashed, and I know he did some good things, but overall, his PFF grade was not kind to him. I think he could become much better. I think there's other corners that can do things, and I think we all know that Tarheeb Still is a baller, right? But based on when you drafted Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still, your hope was that they became Jalen Ramsey. And so if you can take what was already a phenomenal defense last year. In fact, when you look at this defense, they were the 6th rated defense, all right, by PFF, and they were first in points allowed. The struggle, the only thing that I think could hold them back is this cornerback room, depending on if it makes or breaks. So the Chargers have to decide, do we need to go all in now? Do we think we have a Super Bowl ready roster right now? They were a playoff team last year. I don't see why they wouldn't start going for it. So it actually does make some sense. Financially, it makes sense. As far as the current state of the roster and wanting to win right now, it makes sense. As far as it being a need or at least a want on this team, it makes sense. The question is, because financially it makes sense because the team can take on the money. The question is, does it financially make sense to spend 20 escalating up to mid-30s millions of dollars on an aging already on the wrong side of 30 cornerback? That's the question you have to ask yourself. But it's an interesting one to think about, isn't it? I would say give it a go, and then you're not going to have an extremely large cap hit. When you look at this next year, and I'll try and see if I can zoom in here for you a little bit, okay? It's hard because my picture's there. All right, when you look at this, and when we zoom in, this is dead cap over here. All right, so this year, $50 million, nobody's cutting them this year. But the dead cap after this year is $18 million. So if you decide that he was bad this year and you don't want him next year, you can let him go and you only have to pay $18 million. If it's the year after that, it's $11 million. So, and then, like it's guaranteed you're not going to keep him here. But if he's still playing well, you restructure the contract. Look, it's not terrible. I think I'd give it a go. I'd give it a shot. It's not working in Miami, but it absolutely could work in LA to get just a premier corner. There's been a lot of corners in this league that we thought, all right, their career's probably done, and then they just squeeze out with a good defensive plan. They squeeze out another year or 2 or 3, and I think Jalen Ramsey, none of us are even thinking like, all right, his career's done, right? Yeah, maybe his best days are behind him, but his best days were just an absolute best elite corner in the league. Give it a shot. All right, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.